Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into a lantern-lit alley in 17th century Istanbul. The air smells like warm cardamom and the tiniest hint of tobacco. You hear the clink of ceramic cups, the lull of conversation in a dozen dialects, and the occasional burst of laughter that quickly softens. Almost embarrassed to be so loud, you duck under a wooden sign carved with crescent moons and steam swirls, and step into your very first Ottoman Kavihine, part living room, part debate stage, part napping zone, and entirely unlike anything you've ever known. Welcome to the coffeehouse culture of the Ottoman Empire, surprisingly cozy, socially electric, and depending on the decade, probably banned. And no pressure, but you probably wouldn't survive this world more than a week without getting lost, duped, or mistaken for a Venetian spy. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're watching from, and what time it is there. Are you the kind of person who winds down at 80:30, or are we sharing a cup at 2:14 a.m.? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push open the wooden door, and the first thing that hits you is warmth. Not just from the brass brazier glowing in the center of the room, but from the density of quiet, shared comfort. Every person here is doing something different, and yet no one feels out of place. Over there, a scholar adjusts his robe and scratches out verses in Arabic calligraphy with a reed pen. Beside him, two old men squint over a game of backgammon, their cube-shaped dice bouncing off a hand-carved board. Someone behind you hums a tune, and there's that unmistakable sizzle, pop of boiling seize of pots over charcoal, filling the space with the hypnotic smell of roasted coffee beans and bitter sweetness. Your host, an impossibly graceful teenager in loose cotton trousers, glides toward you holding a narrow silver tray with 3 cups and not a single rattle. His name's probably Hassan, or maybe Yusuf. You're not sure. He doesn't introduce himself, and he doesn't need to. He places a cup before you with such quiet flourish you half expect applause. You try to sip right away. Mistake. It's about 900 degrees Celsius. Maybe wait a moment. The room is dim but not gloomy. Most coffee houses use colored glass lanterns hung at varying heights, giving everything a flickering, underwater kind of glow. The walls. Think shelves of books, stacks of cushions, sometimes embroidered poetry or faded paintings of wild-eyed horses. The Ottoman Kavihane wasn't just a place to drink something. It was a state of being. An institution. A lifestyle choice. Mainstream historians agree that by the late 1500s, Istanbul had dozens of these cafes. By the mid-1600s, hundreds. And by the 18th century, you could walk from one end of the city to the other without ever sobering up. On caffeine, that is. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Right now, your cup has cooled enough for that first sip. It's thick. Like mud thick. This isn't your triple shot oat milk latte. There's grit at the bottom, and a bitter profile that makes your molars remember they exist. But then comes the second sip, and something clicks. The flavor isn't just strong, it's layered. Smoke, spice, maybe even hints of cardamom or clove if the beans were stored next to the spice cart that week. And suddenly you're aware, this is not a quick drink and go kind of place. Nobody's looking at the door. No one's scrolling through TikTok. The entire point is to sit, and sip, and drift. Quirky side note. Coffee was sometimes brewed with ambergris. Yep, the waxy stuff whales spit up. Historians still argue whether that was for flavor, medicinal reasons, or just flexing imperial wealth. In this little cafe, though, it's just you, your cup, and the quiet choreography of Ottoman leisure. Outside, camels shuffle past hauling dates and damask cloth. A muezzin's voice hums faintly from a distant minaret. Someone walks in smelling like rain and goat leather, and here you are, perfectly anonymous, gently caffeinated, and slowly absorbing the very first moments of what will become a centuries-long tradition. Gathering in public to drink something warm, listen to ideas, and pretend not to eavesdrop on the guy at the next cushion over. Already, you're beginning to notice how many roles this one space is playing. It's a library without rules, a tavern without booze, a parliament without yelling, a bedroom without walls, and somehow, without anyone saying so, it's become clear that this coffee house is more than a room. It's a portal. One you're now part of. One you may never want to leave. You hover away from the breakfast disc, pleasantly dazed by the emotional buffet you've just absorbed. The jelly being floats beside you, their colors shifting lazily like an afternoon nap that forgot to set an alarm. The atmosphere on Morelia after breakfast is languid, thick with digesting memories and mellow contentment. Your guide, he who is not a fork, gestures, or rather, pulses, toward a cluster of domed structures. These are the fermentoriums, where future breakfasts are born. To the untrained eye, it looks like a garden had a love child with a lava lamp factory. Each dome glows faintly with different hues and hums a low, harmonious tone, like a choir underwater and slightly tipsy. Inside the first dome, you're met with a rush of warm, sweet air. The scent is both foreign and oddly nostalgic, like if someone baked mangoes, nostalgia, and old science textbooks into a pie. Vats of semi-translucent goo bubble quietly, tended by a cluster of smaller beings shaped like elongated teardrops with very serious-looking monocles. Your host explains, through a series of gentle vibrations and a waft of vanilla, that these are the infusers. They're responsible for flavor, memories, the psychic seasoning that gives each dish its emotional signature. One of them offers you a puff of something from a glowing flask. It smells like the last day of summer vacation and makes your ears tingle. You pretend this is fine. Here's where things get mildly unhinged. Morelian breakfast fermentation is less about time and more about vibe. A dish might ferment for 8 minutes or 8 planetary cycles. It depends on when it feels dawn. This method, known as sensoculinary maturation, is what allows jellied life forms to tailor food not just to nutritional need, but to emotional resonance. The main ingredient in many dishes, luminal kelp, a semi-sentient aquatic flora that only grows under certain moons and sings faint lullabies when steeped in liquid joy. You pass a tank full of the stuff. It waves at you. You wave back, wondering briefly if it just judged your breakfast choices. Scientists once attempted to recreate this fermentation technique in a lab on Europa. The results were mixed. Several test subjects reported tasting their parents' unresolved issues, while one unlucky intern developed the ability to smell abstract nouns. Needless to say, funding was not renewed. He who is not a fork leads you deeper into the dome, where a fermentation pool shimmers like a mirror having a dream. You're invited to dip a hand in. The liquid is cool, pulsing gently against your skin like it's scanning your memories for emotional recipes. After a few moments, it offers you a vision of your third-grade science fair. Only this time, you win. With a volcano that sings. And everyone claps, even the principal. You ask your guide, as this food, the jelly, being vibrates in a way that translates loosely as, everything is food if you digest with your soul. You can't argue with that. Not here. Outside, the morning fog has lifted slightly. Morelia's landscape reveals more of its fluid beauty. Floating coral spires, airborne fish the size of microwaves, and distant glimmers of what might be temples or possibly extremely pretentious sunbathers. You're led next to the tasting coil, a spiral walkway made of woven veneglass and bioluminescent algae. Along it, locals line up for preview infusions, small bursts of tomorrow's breakfast currently undergoing flavor, emotion harmonization. You watch as one being tastes a drop of glowing syrup, changes color to burnt orange, and then does a little celebratory shimmy. Apparently, that's a good review. You're offered a taste from a levitating spoon made of hardened sound waves. The sample is called Rain on the Day You Were Brave. It tastes like melted caramel and the moment before a big decision. You try not to cry. You fail a little. Somewhere in the distance, a conch-like tower releases a low note. That's the signal for the digestival, a post-breakfast group meditation ritual involving synchronized undulations and shared dreaming. You're told it improves digestion by 47% and reduces emotional plaque. But that's not your destination today. Your host wants to show you the archives. Yes, even jelly beings have culinary archives. Except here, recipes are recorded as emotion vials and taste spores, stored in spiraling shelves of solidified memory glass. A scholar being greets you, trailing a dozen quills that scribble their thoughts in the air behind them. They offer you a vial labeled, Breakfast Before the Fall of the Second Moon. You open it. It smells like coffee and cosmic regret. The archive holds thousands of such vials, each representing a unique meal experienced by someone on Morelia. These aren't just for nostalgia, they're ingredients in themselves. By blending old emotions, new dishes are born. One popular flavor? First love reheated. Another? Shame, that's finally funny. A scientist still debate how the archive catalogs so precisely. Some believe there's an AI buried deep within the planet's crust, gently curating the collection. Others think the archive is sentient, possibly moody, and prone to reorganizing itself for fun. No one has disproved either theory. You're allowed to choose one vial to take with you. You pick something labeled Tuesday. It smells like hope, citrus, and forgotten songs. As you step out into the mid-morning glow, you realize this isn't just a breakfast tradition. It's a whole culture built around feeling deeply, eating slowly, and making sure nothing, no memory, no flavor, no story, is ever wasted. You glide from the archives with the vial of Tuesday still humming faintly in your satchel. The air outside has warmed slightly. By Morellian standards, that means it now smells more like spiced fog and less like damp moon moss. Your jelly guide, still pulsing with a color you're fairly certain means pleasantly impressed, directs you toward the northern district, the communal swell. This is where the more social forms of breakfast occur, meals that aren't just ingested but shared, layered, and, occasionally, sung into existence. You arrive at a courtyard that seems to be breathing. Literally, the cobblestones rise and fall with a slow rhythm, like a sleepy tide made of mineralized bread dough. You're assured this is perfectly safe. The beings here aren't all jelly-based like your host. A variety of semi-gelatinous species have gathered. Some wobble on translucent pseudopods, others ripple like someone spilled intelligent jam. A few are more rigid, their bodies formed of firm protein, gel encased in crusty mineral exoskins that crack delicately when they laugh, which they do often, and for reasons you can't quite discern. In the center of the swell stands a structure best described as an edible amphitheater. Its seats are made of compressed syrup bark and its stage, a shifting mosaic of edible mosses, glows softly under twin suns. You are invited to join a group meal, chant already in progress. Each participant vibrates at a slightly different pitch, contributing to a harmonic resonance that is both music and marination. The melody seeps into bowls of gelatin resting in front of them, infusing each dish with emotional complexity. Your own bowl begins to shimmer. It pulses once, gently, and emits the flavor profile of that one rainy afternoon you spent reading quietly and feeling exactly okay. You've never tasted okay before, but it's oddly satisfying. A bit like vanilla mixed with mild personal growth. One of the meal chanters explains that on Morelia, it's considered rude to eat alone unless you're also actively, telepathically narrating your thoughts to nearby birds. You ask how that works. A small bird made entirely of song hovers nearby and nods in what you assume is affirmation. The concept of food as story continues to unfold. Here, a jelly being recounts a childhood memory of their first edible concert, an event where the audience's emotional reactions determined the menu. Another describes a wedding where every guest was served a dish infused with the couple's most awkward moments. To ensure authenticity, you begin to understand why boring breakfast is not a phrase that exists in their language. Still, not all breakfasts are elaborate ceremonies. You're led down a narrow passage lined with membranous veils that part like sleepy curtains. Beyond lies a quieter scene, a residential pod cluster where morning meals are more modest. Here, gelatinous beings consume simpler dishes, single spoon servings of flavored plasma or mood globes that dissolve on contact with dermal membranes. One elder offers you a bite of something called memory root jelly. It's wobbly, purple, and tastes like warm socks and the smell of your grandmother's attic. For a moment, you're 8 years old again and someone is brushing your hair with unnecessary force. You do not cry, but you do blink a lot. The elder chuckles and explains that some flavors are meant to be unsettling. Not unpleasant, just clarifying, like early mornings or group projects. The idea is to stir something inside, to start the day not with comfort, but with awareness. Scientists visiting Morelia have long puzzled over the role of shared memory in their nutrition. Some theorize that their digestion relies more on psychic resonance than caloric intake, that their bodies metabolize feelings as efficiently as sugars. Others believe it's a form of evolved empathy, a biological necessity in a society where everyone is at least 30% transparent and no secrets can be kept for long. You're offered another bowl, this one opaque and pulsing very slowly. It's labeled Leftover regrets. Mild. You hesitate, then take a spoonful. It's bittersweet, like coffee with the wrong milk but the right conversation. Your chest feels a little lighter afterward. A juvenile jelly being drifts over and offers you a food puzzle, a kind of breakfast Rubik's Cube that must be solved emotionally before it becomes edible. You are told to recall a memory you never wanted and hold it gently until it softens. It takes some effort, but eventually the cube dissolves into something resembling soft raspberry mousse with undertones of forgiveness. You are declared moderately wise for a bite. The swell begins to shift again, gently urging its participants toward post-meal reflection. Hammocks of memory, silk unfurl from the walls, and many of the jelly folk settle into brief digestion dreams. Your host leads you to one such hammock. You're hesitant at first, but once you lie back, the silky threads read your spine like a polite librarian and begin whispering faint lullabies from other people's Tuesdays. Somewhere nearby, someone snores in Morse code. A child giggles in 3 tones at once. A tea kettle emits jazz. Scientists still wonder if Morellian dreams are communal. Studies have shown that multiple beings report identical imagery upon waking. A glowing fish with a crown of toast. A staircase that leads to someone else's kitchen. A planet made entirely of old receipts. None of this has been verified, but all of it has been published in very respectable journals. As your eyes close for a moment, the last thing you feel is the pulse of the swell beneath you, breathing slowly, softly, in sync with the beings it holds. And just like that, your breakfast becomes part of you. Not just nutritionally, but narratively. When you stir again, if one can, stir, inside a hammock woven from memory, silk and morning lullabies, it's with a sense of buoyant curiosity. Breakfast is complete, but your day on Morelia is only just beginning, and apparently, the next stop is a regional curiosity known as the Single Spoon Cafe. Your jelly host, now pulsing with a pleasant choral who, explains as you drift along a semi-floating path paved with dried bubbleweed. The Single Spoon Cafe is not named because they lack cutlery, but because everyone shares the same spoon. Not metaphorically, literally the same spoon. As you arrive, you're welcomed by a set of 3 greeters who appear to be a conjoined being of citrus-hued gelatin, murmuring introductions in slow, echoing harmonies. The spoon in question rests atop a pedestal of polished coral stone, encased in a bell jar. It's larger than you expect, roughly the size of a canoe paddle, and made of some kind of polished meteor, silver etched with runes that change depending on who's watching. Today, one part of the tree being announces, the spoon says, patience. You are not entirely sure what that implies for the meal ahead, but you nod solemnly, as though you've always known. Inside the cafe, the ambience is quiet but not silent. There's a hum in the air, like the sound of a well-fed star napping somewhere just outside the stratosphere. Patrons float gently in place or recline against cushions shaped like sleeping cats. The furniture is soft and slightly jiggly, much like the customers. Everyone here eats slowly, reverently. You watch as the spoon is passed from one guest to the next, each taking a small bite from the bowl in front of them and holding it in their mouth for exactly 9 seconds before swallowing. Apparently, the timing is important. It allows the taste to reach the deeper minds. You're not sure if that means subconscious or gastrointestinal, but the effect is calming either way. When it's your turn, the spoon feels warm and faintly humming in your hand. You dip it into a bowl labeled Ecofruit Porridge, Az Aged, and lift it to your lips. The taste is unexpected, like the memory of a lullaby sung in a tunnel, soft and distant and oddly nutritious. As you finish your bite, your left ear briefly itches in Morse code. You ignore it. That feels right. While you wait for the spoon to make its round again, your host tells you that the cafe originally began as a protest against culinary hoarding. In the early days of inter-species integration, not every being knew how to prepare food in a way that others could consume, so the spoon became a symbol of shared learning. It taught the chefs to cook for difference, to consider texture, vibration, flavor resonance, and even light emission. It turned out that not everyone digests in the same color spectrum. The current chef is a tall, vaguely conical being made of layered jelly sheets, each one vibrating in slightly different directions. They go by Chef Trilip and communicate entirely through whistled steam. Apparently, They were once a cartographer of taste and designed the galaxy's first edible topographical map. A continent made of custard, mountains of crisp bread, and rivers of fermented starlight syrup. Unfortunately, it melted before it could be displayed. Still, the idea alone earned them 3 Galactic Gastronomy Awards and a ceremonial hat. You're given another dish, this time smaller and called a mood pearl. It's not chewed, just held gently under the tongue. As it dissolves, you feel a rush of calm so profound it's as if your bones decide to hum. The flavor is hard to describe, like the scent of rain that hasn't fallen yet, or the sound of good news arriving 2 days early. A nearby diner, a being shaped vaguely like a seahorse made of smog, leans over and whispers, "That one's made from fermented starglow. Aged 12 cycles and blessed by 3 moon priests." You nod solemnly again, as though you definitely know what any of those words mean. Scientists have been trying to reverse engineer mood pearls for decades. The trouble is, they only work when prepared by beings with no sense of urgency. Most researchers, unfortunately, are in a hurry to be the first. That alone disqualifies them. The paradox is delicious. You linger at the cafe for some time, enjoying the slow rhythm of communal tasting and the occasional philosophical debate between 2 amorphous patrons about whether eating memories makes you forget things, or simply makes you remember them differently. One insists their entire childhood now tastes like cinnamon and unresolved questions. The other counters that their most recent tax audit now reminds them of a sunrise. You are not sure who's winning, but the conversation makes the air feel slightly more edible. Eventually, the spoon completes its circuit and returns to the pedestal. A small chime sounds, something between a yawn and a polite hiccup, and the session is declared complete. Diners stretch, ripple, or unfold as necessary, and slowly begin to drift toward the exits. A trio of glowing slugs begins wiping the tables clean with what looks like happy moss. Before you leave, the treat being at the entrance places 1 gelatinous pseudopod on your shoulder and says, "You were a good spoon, friend. Come again next Tuesday, or the memory of it. You promised to try." As you and your host glide away on the floating path, the sky begins to shift. The second sun is setting now, giving the atmosphere a color somewhere between peach and uncertainty. In the distance, you can hear the gentle bell tones of a monastery made entirely of soup announcing the next communal nap cycle. And though you're not tired yet, you feel a deep, cellular kind of relaxation. Like your atoms are settling into a hammock you didn't know they needed. You float through twilight though. Twilight, on Morelia, is a generous term. With 2 suns and a phosphorescent moon belt, the concept of dark here is more of an agreement than an event. The sky cycles into a muted blue with streaks of violet and blinking constellations shaped like awkwardly drawn vegetables. The air tastes faintly of mint and cinnamon. Silk, your host, now a soothing mauve shade with faint traces of pollen yellow, announces your next destination, a jelly-monastic enclave nestled atop the blooming plateau. This is where jelly-based lifeforms conduct their breakfast rites in silence, practicing what they call flavor meditation. You arrive via a gliding lily pad elevator, which hums gently beneath you, powered by slow-moving gas from below the crust. The plateau is carpeted in something that looks like lavender moss and smells like warm parchment. All around, translucent domes bubble up like eggs in a cosmic stew, and within them, you see small groups of jellies, some nearly invisible, congregated in quiet, undulating prayer. You are welcomed by a guide named Frond, who is slightly more angular than your host and emits soft harp-like tones when walking. They hand you a vow of non-crunch, which you solemnly accept. This means that for the duration of your visit, no food may be bitten or broken, all nourishment must melt, fizz, dissolve, or resonate into you. You nod seriously. The flavor meditation begins at dusk. You sit cross-legged hours, which feels unreasonably complicated on the springy ground, while a ceremonial jelly places a spiral bowl in front of you. In it floats a single pearl-sized orb called a musing glimmer. You are instructed to stare at it until it reveals the flavor your soul most needs. For some, the glimmer turns golden, and they receive a taste of citrus empathy. For others, it deepens into ultramarine and delivers a wave of nostalgic protein. Yours, however, becomes chartreuse with flickers of turquoise, which a nearby monk interprets as mild existential reassurance with notes of tea biscuit. You consume it without chewing, merely allowing it to dissolve on the roof of your mouth. And feel the flavor whisper to every bone in your body. It's all right, probably. Afterward, you join a small group of silent practitioners sitting in a ring of bioluminescent fungi, each holding a listening loaf. This is not, strictly speaking, edible bread. It is a spongy, consciousness-sensitive material that absorbs your thoughts and reflects back a corresponding flavor mist. Your first exhale releases a cloud of bergamot and mothball. Apparently, you're still thinking about a jacket you lost in college. Your host, who clearly cannot help but emit a chuckle-colored ripple, guides you to the center dome where the high jelly, known only as centrifuge, resides. Centrifuge resembles a rotating hourglass made of slowly moving jelly layers, each one a slightly different shade of lunar indigo. They speak in glacial tempo, communicating more with shared sense than sounds. From centrifuge, you learn the core principle of gelimonastic cuisine. Digestion is a dialogue. This is taken literally. Meals are designed not only to feed the body, but to carry on conversations with your gut flora, who, on this planet, are semi-sentient and occasionally vote on dessert. It's said that the monastery's signature breakfast, the spiral whisper pudding, contains no nutrients but manages to sustain the body by stimulating the hypothalamus into producing gratitude. Gratitude is heavier than glucose, Frond explains. You nod, pretending to know how the hypothalamus works. Your final ritual is the aromatic tethering. You're wrapped in a loose coil of ribbon fruit skin and instructed to breathe slowly as incense made from dried sleep petals and fermented laughter is wafted into the dome. The goal is to allow your taste memories to drift into the communal psychic broth so that future breakfasts across the plateau may be gently infused with your presence. Somewhere in the distance, a gong made from an old meteorite chimes once. The air quivers. You feel a moment of genuine stillness. Scientists still debate whether the gelimonastic communities of Morelia have actually achieved transcendence through breakfast, or if their intense focus on sensation simply recalibrates their neurochemical clocks to better simulate contentment. Either way, visitors often leave transformed, or at least unusually well rested. As the sky blushes again, this time a tender melon pink, you're guided back to the lily pad lift. The monks bow or wiggle meaningfully, and you bow in return, nearly toppling over a floral lantern shaped like a dozing otter. You descend the plateau, the scent of tea biscuit still tucked somewhere behind your sinuses, and your host leads you toward a new path, a glimmering forest of translucent stalks known as the Breakfast Grove. But that's a journey for the next moment. For now, you float, full of questionably nutritional enlightenment, and consider whether your own breakfasts have been too noisy all along. The trail into the Breakfast Grove unfolds beneath your feet like a slow exhale. You move between towering, jelly-clear stalks that bend gently as you pass, giving the impression they are politely making room for you. Some hum, some sigh. All seem vaguely pleased by your presence, which is either charming or deeply suspicious depending on your caffeine levels. Your host, now pulsing a soft mauve tangerine hue, explains that the Grove is not just a culinary resource. It's a community of semi-mobile breakfast organisms who prefer to be foraged politely. These beings do not like being harvested, a word they consider far too abrupt. Instead, they offer themselves up based on the emotional resonance of the forager. If you are calm, kind, and have recently forgiven someone, they will literally lean into your hand. You make your way to a grove circle where several travelers are seated on hover cushions, sipping a slow drip broth filtered through moss-tempered satellite shells. They nod to you without speaking, their eyes glazed in a way that suggests enlightenment or low blood sugar. You accept a bowl of this shimmering breakfast broth and take a sip. It tastes like warm fog and childhood curiosity. Every plant in the grove serves a unique function. The mood fruit shifts flavors based on ambient tension. The snorbark secretes a paste that induces gentle, story-filled dreams when spread across toast. A hanging pod named Thrumbery occasionally drops a single seed that echoes with faint giggling when cracked open. No one knows why, and no one wants to ruin the mystery by testing it in a lab. Your host introduces you to a cluster of beings resembling geometric marshmallows stacked into improbable towers. These are the custard keepers. They cultivate a form of nutrient gel that is both breakfast and lullaby. The gel is kept warm by wrapping it in thin layers of ambient empathy, harvested earlier that morning during communal stretching rituals. You're given a sample. The gel melts on your tongue, and for just a moment, you remember your grandmother's handwriting, even though you never knew what it looked like. You look to your host for answers, but they merely twinkle, non-verbally suggesting that the keepers do not dabble in small truths. Further into the grove, you stumble upon what appears to be a breakfast duel. Two scholars, one tall and composed, the other squat and emotionally radiant, are seated cross-legged with spoons raised. Between them lies a steaming dish known only as the paradox flan. According to legend, it can only be consumed by a mind that believes and disbelieves in its own hunger simultaneously. You watch as each scholar meditates over the dish. After several minutes, one manages to levitate their spoon without touching it, and the flan quivers, slightly impressed. The other sighs and takes a consolation nibble of a nearby gratitude crumble, which responds by quietly rearranging its spice matrix into a smile. You ask your host whether all breakfasts here are this emotionally charged. They respond with a phrase that translates loosely as, "Only the memorable ones." One particularly revered corner of the grove contains the Echo Oven, a naturally occurring basalt chamber warmed by subsurface Lillaby lava. Every morning, at what you assume is sunrise, it releases a puff of cinnamon steam and low-frequency purring. The locals believe that simply standing near the oven aligns your emotional biorhythm with the universe's breakfast intentions. You do so, and instantly feel as though you've just forgiven a pet fish for something it never did. Scientists still puzzle over the grove's energy field. It resists most forms of digital mapping and regularly causes artificial intelligence to compose breakfast-themed poetry without prompting. Some theorize the grove was planted by a long-extinct race of gastronomic philosophers, others believe it spontaneously appeared in response to cosmic loneliness. Your host picks a single transluca fruit from a low-hanging vine and splits it in two. Inside, rather than seeds or pulp, there's a miniature scene, two otter-like creatures sharing a pancake by starlight. You blink. It's gone. The host says nothing, and neither do you. As you begin to leave the grove, the stalks sway in gentle farewell. A puff of scent, nutmeg and soft sandalwood, trails behind you like a memory pretending to be weather. Your stomach is full, but not in the traditional sense. It's as though the very idea of hunger has been filed away for later. As you walk, you ask your host what happens to those who try to monetize the grove. They answer by pointing to a nearby fern growing upside down and humming an off-key lullaby. You take the hint. Now, as the trail begins to ascend, the environment shifts again. Less grove, more sculpted architecture. Ahead lies a spiral tower built entirely of crystallized breakfast vapor. This, your host informs you, is the archive of forgotten flavors. You raise an eyebrow, but your host merely shimmers in a "you'll see" pattern. The tower awaits, promising memories of meals that never existed, yet feel oddly familiar. The spiral tower stands as if carved from solid morning mist, fragile but unbreakable, twinkling faintly in shifting shades of lilac and marmalade. Each of its semi-transparent steps seems to hum a different note as you climb, forming an accidental lullaby that loops every seventh tone, just in time for your tired thoughts to begin folding in on themselves like soft origami. Inside the archive of forgotten flavors, the air tastes like nostalgia diluted in vanilla. No walls, just spiraling shelves suspended in midair by gentle gravitational hiccups. Each shelf holds ornate, orb-like capsules that resemble breakfast eggs laid by particularly fanciful dragons. These contain flavor moments that were either lost to time, wiped by species-wide amnesia, or invented accidentally by particularly imaginative dreamers. Your host hands you one such orb. The surface ripples under your fingers, and suddenly you're elsewhere. You're seated on a balcony made of stardust glass, sipping molten starlight with something that looks like a cheerful squid wearing a breakfast bonnet. The taste is warm, citrusy, and faintly mathematical. When the sensation fades, the orb cracks gently open, releasing a scent like cinnamon applause. A custodian drifts over, a floating sphere with dozens of tiny hands sorting and polishing the orbs with exaggerated reverence. They greet you with a gesture that means both welcome and please don't lick anything. You return the sentiment, internally committing to lick only two things at most. The custodian explains that these archived flavors come from all across the galaxy. Some are culinary accidents preserved by curious cosmic forces. Others are the byproduct of emotions so specific they only occurred once, like heartbreak felt under a binary sunrise while holding a lukewarm porridge brick. That flavor, you're told, is stored 3 shelves up under the category bittersweet goo. You float gently to another level, assisted by what feels like a breeze but might actually be a very mellow gravitational tide. There, you find orbs labeled in languages you don't speak but somehow understand. Fleeting childhood on the moon of Larf, first toast after cryo nap, and the pancake that saved a marriage. Your host leads you to a rare sealed capsule. It's larger, glowing faintly from within, and surrounded by a ring of harmonic chimes that only play when someone with a hungry soul approaches you, naturally, 'cause a brief solo. Inside, the orb contains the memory of a breakfast that never physically existed but was imagined simultaneously by 1,000 minds during a shared dream. It's called the quantum creep. You ask if anyone's ever eaten it. The custodian replies that you can only taste it if you truly believe you didn't. This makes sense in the same way that dreams do until you wake up. You sit for a moment on a bench made of suspended syrup threads and reflect. The tower hums softly, a memory engine powered not by electricity but by longing. You sip from a glass handed to you. It contains infused stillness, a beverage harvested from the size of hibernating star oxen. You don't ask how they do that. You just enjoy the taste. Buttery silence with a hint of old piano. Scientists who've tried to study the archive never last long. Either their instruments malfunction in oddly poetic ways, like printers that only produce muffin recipes, or they forget why they came entirely, leaving with a sense of deep satisfaction and a faint smell of blueberries. Scholars still debate whether the archive is sentient. Some say it rearranges itself depending on the type of visitor. One scientist swore he saw an entire wing dedicated to Eggs Benedict for the emotionally repressed. Another encountered a corridor labeled coffees that made you cry, but in a good way. Or your host waves you forward into a small, almost hidden chamber called the alcove of imagined utensils. Inside are delicate renderings of tools that no one has ever actually used. Forks with 17 tines for negotiating peace treaties over pastries, spoons curved to fit the curvature of planetary rings, knives designed not to cut but to gently convince. You pick up a thought spatula. It vibrates once, flashes crimson teal, and then disintegrates into fragrant mist. You get the impression that was exactly what it wanted to do. Further still, you reach the exit platform, a gently rotating gallery that displays the most celebrated flavor, orbs in shimmering frames. One of them depicts a jelly-based lifeform gently preparing its breakfast near a lava tide pool under 3 lavender moons. You realize it's the very jelly species you've been journeying among. The orb hums softly. Inside it, the flavor is described only as belonging. The moment lingers. You feel full, not physically, but in that calm, post-meal sort of way where everything, even chaos, seems like it's in the right bowl. Before leaving, your host asks if you'd like to leave behind a flavor of your own. You think for a moment, then smile. You hum a quiet note from your childhood, part lullaby, part cartoon jingle, part rainy day. The custodian catches it in a tiny silver net and stores it in an orb now labeled Visitor 547, Sweet Memory, lightly toasted. Your host nods approvingly. Not bad for a first-timer, they say, their colors shifting in a ripple of satisfaction. The tower's spiral uncoils itself into a slide. You don't even have to ask. Your host just gestures. You hop on, and the tower giggles softly behind you as you slide back down to the base, surrounded by the scent of vanilla stardust and a faint wind that whispers, "You forgot your socks." Even though you didn't. You land gently at the base of the tower, your journey not quite over, but your sense of breakfast definitely expanded. Ahead, a crystalline path leads to the next experience, a culinary duel judged by sentient marshes, naturally. You step onto the crystalline path, each step producing a soft chime like the delicate ringing of ice against glass. The path winds through a landscape unlike any you've seen before. Vibrant marshes with shimmering surfaces that ripple with subtle hues of emerald and amethyst. These marshes are alive, sentient in ways that defy simple description, reacting to your presence with gentle pulses of light and sound. The duel is about to begin, Before you stands a pair of competitors, one a gelatinous, translucent figure from the Veil Nebula cluster, whose form shifts softly like a liquid prism, the other a tall, moss-covered being from the planet Verdantis, whose limbs resemble intertwined vines glowing faintly with bioluminescent flowers. They greet each other with a ritual exchange of scents, a fragrant cloud that speaks volumes in this alien language of flora and pheromones. The duel is not one of violence, but of creation. Each contestant must craft a breakfast dish that embodies their culture's relationship with nature and the cosmos. You watch as the gelatinous contestant conjures glowing orbs of nutrient-rich plasma, swirling with iridescent colors and emitting soft, melodic tones that seem to harmonize with the marsh's hum. The Verdantis competitor gently manipulates living vines, coaxing flowers to bloom instantly and fold open to reveal sweet nectar and crunchy seeds. The judges, a council of elder marsh entities, observe silently, their forms barely distinguishable from the environment itself. Their decisions are made through waves of light and shifting colors that ripple across the marsh's surface. You sense that the verdict will not only decide the duel, but also influence the marsh's health for the coming cycle. As the duel concludes, the marshes respond with a gentle crescendo of sound and color, a living symphony celebrating unity and diversity. The winning dish is shared with all present, its flavors said to carry the essence of the universe's quiet moments, dawns on distant moons, whispered star songs, and the gentle unfolding of life. You are offered a taste, delicate, complex, and soothing. It lingers on your tongue like a soft memory, leaving you feeling connected to something vast, and ancient. Scientists still wonder how these sentient marshes evolved such intricate culinary communication, debating whether their abilities are a result of symbiosis, cosmic radiation, or some unknown form of collective consciousness. As you prepare to leave the marsh, a soft breeze carries a final message, a promise of renewal, a reminder that even in the quietest corners of the galaxy, life finds ways to surprise and comfort. You now find yourself drifting through the orbit of a small, dim star, home to the Arborean cluster, a region renowned for its unique aerial gardens suspended above gaseous clouds. Here, gravity is gentle, and the air shimmers with particles that sparkle like tiny stars. Floating platforms, tethered by fine crystalline threads, cradle vast gardens where alien plants with translucent leaves and bioluminescent fruits grow. Among these gardens, the breakfast ritual centers on harvesting ski nectar, a sweet, effervescent liquid secreted by the rare luminara blossoms. Local inhabitants, slender and elongated beings with shimmering skin that shifts color based on their emotions, gather before dawn to carefully collect the nectar in delicate crystal vials. The ritual is both a meditative practice and a celebration of the day's new light. You watch as an elder, dressed in robes dyed with starlight indigo and comet, russet, leads the community in a chant that resonates with the hum of the plants. The chant encourages the blossoms to release their nectar, creating a soft, glowing rain that drizzles gently onto the harvester's outstretched hands. Once collected, the nectar is poured into hollowed shells, which act as natural vessels. These are then shared among friends and family, accompanied by songs that echo through the sky gardens like the gentle ringing of distant bells. The calm pace of this ritual invites you to relax, and you notice how the ambient light, the whispered voices, and the delicate taste of the nectar lull your senses into a quiet calm. Scientists still debate how the Arboreans develop such a complex symbiosis with their aerial flora, wondering if the unique stellar radiation influences plant biochemistry to create the effervescent nectar. As the sun slowly rises over the swirling clouds beneath the gardens, you feel a serene sense of belonging in this quiet, airborne world. You drift now to the sprawling subterranean city of Zeltarn, carved deep within the crystalline caverns of the planet Xylar 7. Here, the air shimmers with a faint blue glow from luminescent fungi and mineral veins pulsing with soft energy. The Zeltarnians, a species of silicon-based lifeforms with angular, faceted bodies reflecting ambient light like living gemstones, begin their morning by preparing a unique breakfast brew known as crystal dew. This ritual involves collecting tiny droplets that condense overnight on the cavern's crystalline walls, droplets said to hold traces of ancient cosmic energy. The Zeltarnians use delicate, brass and wooden instruments resembling astrolabes and alembics to carefully extract and distill the dew into a warm, slightly sparkling elixir. The brew's flavor is said to mimic the mineral-rich environment of the caves, with subtle hints of stardust sweetness. You watch as the community gathers in a vast hall carved from amethyst and quartz, where the Zeltarnian elders perform an intricate alchemical chant. Their voices create harmonic vibrations that resonate through the crystals, believed to enhance the potency of the dew. As the ritual ends, the brew is passed among the assembled beings who savor the warmth and subtle sparkle of the elixir. Despite the apparent tranquility, there is an ongoing debate among xenobiologists about the true nature of the crystal dew. Is it a natural occurrence, or a form of bioengineered energy storage crafted by the Zeltarnians' ancestors? As you sip this calming elixir in your imagination, the soft glow of the crystalline cavern walls and the ritual's slow cadence draw you into a deep, peaceful reverie. You glide next to the drifting orbital farms that circle the gas giant Althera in the Kappa Centauri system. These floating platforms, tethered by shimmering energy filaments, host a variety of bioengineered flora, plants designed to thrive in zero gravity and harvest energy from Althera's swirling storms. This morning, the inhabitants, a collective of bio-synthetic beings known as the Silon, begin their breakfast by harvesting storm fruit. Translucent pods that pulse gently with ambient electricity. The Silon carefully crack open the pods with intricate brass tools, releasing a soft glow and a faint hum, which fills the air with a serene, almost hypnotic melody. As you observe, you notice their delicate, plasma, teal skin shimmering softly in the planet's reflected light. Their ritual involves synchronizing their bio-implants to the stormfruit's energy frequency, believed to promote mental clarity and calm during the hectic energy storms. Scientists still wonder whether the Silon's bioengineering extends beyond survival, perhaps into a form of conscious symbiosis with their living farms. Are these stormfruits a source of nourishment, or a sentient partner in their daily lives? The gentle crackle of electricity and the calm murmurs of the Silon create an oddly soothing atmosphere, perfect for drifting into restful thought. You now drift toward the crystalline forests of Virilia, a moon orbiting the gas giant Orion in the distant Helios cluster. Here, the dominant lifeforms are sentient, photosensitive plants known as the lumini. Their leaves shimmer with nebula, saffron and comet, russet hues, gently pulsing with bioluminescent light. At dawn, the luminae engage in a serene breakfast ritual, absorbing faint cosmic rays filtered through the moon's thin atmosphere. These rays trigger a soft chorus of harmonic vibrations, a natural melody that seems to resonate throughout the forest. The plant's root networks exchange mineral-rich fluids in a communal, nutrient toast, symbolizing connection and shared sustenance. Local scholars debate if these harmonic vibrations serve as a form of communication or simply an evolutionary byproduct. Meanwhile, the moon's thin atmosphere scatters twin suns' light, casting an otherworldly glow that bathes everything in a peaceful, warm radiance. As you float gently through this alien dawn, you can almost feel the slow pulse of the luminae's collective heartbeat, inviting you to relax and ease into the soft rhythm of their waking world. You glide next to the floating markets of Zephyria, a ringed gas giant with swirling turquoise and brass clouds. Here, the merchants are an elegant species of cephalopod, like aliens called the Volari, whose translucent skin reflects plasma, teal and starlight, indigo under the soft glow of the planet's three moons. Breakfast here is less about food and more about exchanging fragrant vapor elixirs distilled from rare floating crystals harvested from the planet's upper atmosphere. These elixirs release calming aromas that induce gentle visions of past memories, shared quietly among the Volari as a bonding custom. The marketplace hums with soft chatter and the clinking of delicate brass astrolabes used to measure time by the movement of distant stars. Scholars still ponder whether these vapor elixirs have mild psychoactive properties, or if the visions come purely from shared cultural suggestion. As you watch the Volari softly communicate through fluid gestures and shimmering colors, you feel an enveloping calmness, a perfect setting to drift deeper into restful space. You now find yourself on the twilight plains of Ganymede, a moon orbiting a quiet binary star system. The landscape is dotted with colossal, bioluminescent fungi glowing in nebula, saffron, and comet, russet hues. casting long shadows over the alien grasses. Here, the sentient herbivorous plant species called luminous start their day by absorbing ambient starlight through crystalline leaves that shimmer like shards of glass. Their morning ritual is a slow, pulsing luminescence dance, an intricate display of light waves used to communicate peace and intentions for the day. Scientists remain curious whether this light dance also serves as a subtle energy exchange between luminae individuals or is purely symbolic. Either way, the gentle flickering waves create a soothing ambient glow that has been likened to a natural lullaby across the Ganymede plains. You watch as the soft colors ripple across the fungal stalks and luminae forms, a dreamlike serenity unfolding before your eyes. The slow rhythm seems designed to lull even the most restless space travelers into a tranquil state. As the twin suns dip below the horizon, you arrive at the floating gardens of Valora Prime, where the air is thick with iridescent mist and the scent of spiced nectar. Here, the aquatic beings known as the Quarlians gather for their nightly meal, a ritual of sharing fermented algae paste and bioluminescent fruits harvested from deep underwater groves. The Quarlians' communal dining involves synchronized bubble singing, which not only conveys stories but also helps regulate oxygen flow through their gills. This practice has intrigued xenobiologists, who still debate if the bubble songs carry hidden mathematical codes or are simply soothing melodies. The scene unfolds like a gentle symphony of glowing colors and fluid movements, casting a calm spell over the gardens. The communal aspect of this meal fosters deep bonds among Quarlians and invites you to reflect on the quiet, peaceful ways alien life adapts to its worlds. With this calming vision, your journey through the galaxies begins to slow, the sights and sounds weaving a tapestry of restfulness and wonder. Now, as the stars blink awake in the velvet sky, you can feel your own breath settling into a gentle rhythm, ready to drift into the serene sleep the cosmos gently offers.